Alright, that was quite a silly season, not gonna lie. However, even the silliest of silly seasons would not be complete without a whole host of F1 YouTubers making their predictions at the start of the season and then returning at the end of the season to react to their terrible predictions. And so here I am. I made my predictions just after the Imola Grand Prix weekend. Let's take a look over them and see how accurate they were. Before we continue this video, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. The support on the channel this last year has been absolutely amazing. We're getting so close to 1 million subscribers, only 994,000 subscribers to go. And so, it's time to dive in to a world of politics, of rumours, of contracts meaning absolutely nothing, the F1 driver market. Let's do this. I was gonna do like a dive, and then I realized there's a flaw here. You know what? Let's do it. Add some like splash effects. Let's see. Did it work? In my video at the start of the season, I said there were 3 teams with their lineups already sorted for 2023. So let's start with those.
Ferrari.
I made my video just after Sainz had re-signed until the end of 2024, and so the Leclerc-Sainz partnership was a pretty easy one to predict. Sainz obviously has had a rocky season at times, but not rocky enough to get himself booted out of the team. Leclerc, on the other hand, is Mr. Ferrari, whether he likes it or not, and so I think it's going to be a while until we see him dressed in anything other than red. Pretty easy one, this one.
Mercedes.
Despite constant discussions about Lewis potentially retiring for about the last 3 years now, I didn't see him going anywhere for 2023, and he didn't, so there we go. Russell was on a multi-year deal which at least covers 2023, and as he showed us in 2022, that absolutely deserves to not change, and so Mercedes, Russell Hamilton, another simple one. There's a reason I brushed over these teams in my original video, and that's because when a driver signs onto a multi-year deal, generally, that means they stay there for all of it. Not always though.
McLaren.
So firstly, no need to talk about Norris. Was already on a multi-year deal and then came out this year and just proved again why he completely deserves to have that. Best of the rest beat both of the Alpine drivers in the driver's standing despite having probably a significantly worse car. Yeah, elite level driver. Can someone please give him a car capable of winning a race? Okay, so the seat we need to talk about. My prediction was for Ricciardo to be in this seat, but that wasn't really a prediction and more just stating the fact that he had a contract for 2023. Yes, he had a shaky 2021, but there were still flashes of speed. And let's not forget, at the start of this season, it didn't look like McLaren had many options to replace him, even if they wanted to. I guess Gasly? That looked like it was just about it. It's not like they could have had, say, Piastri. He was all locked up in an Alpine contract. But silly me. Little did I know that there was one man out there in the world doing his best to make me look dumb in my video. One mischievous, elderly Spanish gentleman by the name of Fernando Alonso. Also, let's not forget that Alpine like to do Alpine things, and so between the two of them, really, we should have known this silly season was going to be absolutely mental season. We'll cover that a bit later, but obviously, as it turns out, Piastri was on the table, and so McLaren snatched him up. Given Ricciardo's performance this year, it seems that that was actually a pretty good deal for the team. Piastri is a promising young rookie, and just think, if both cars had scored Norris-level points this season, McLaren would have beaten Alpine for 4th in the Constructors, which is worth quite a bit of cash. The one thing about keeping Ricciardo would have been, the man is a PR dream. The man moves merch, like a wheelbarrow, just shifts it. That would have been good for them, but McLaren do now have the opportunity to build a whole new fan base around a whole new driver, particularly if Piastri turns out to be quick. Also, I for one welcome the McLaren-Alpine rivalry, which this transfer is obviously a significant part in. If I was Zach Brown, I would be throwing as much oil onto these flames as possible because A, it's hilarious, and B, Alpine, I don't know how, just kind of have a way of always looking pretty dumb when they get involved in stuff like this. Alpine things. And so there's a strong chance that it's going to make McLaren look like the sort of lovable rogues with the grid, which they kind of do. They kind of do now, but you know, all publicity is good publicity, unless you're Alpine, of course. Okay, so now the teams that didn't have a full lineup signed before my predictions video.
Red Bull.
This first one was kind of simple. Obviously, Verstappen is going nowhere, and then Perez didn't have a contract, but it didn't take him long to earn himself a new one. There we go. It seems that Red Bull quite like Perez, and it seems that Perez quite likes Red Bull. Mostly. Having just put in the best performance of any of Max's teammates since Ricciardo, it's no surprise the man now has a contract with the team until the end of 2024. As Perez well knows, though, contracts in F1 don't always come true, and you're only ever one shaky season and one rising star away from being in the bins. But for now, he can sleep comfortably.
Alpine.
Okay, right. These guys. So my predictions were no change. Ocon is on a 2024 deal and he scores solid points. That one came true. But then comes Alonso. In my previous video, I said that Alonso's future depends on one thing, whatever Alonso wants. And you better believe that's true. At 41 years old, the man had contract offers from multiple teams, and so obviously he just picked the one that sounded best to him. Alpine was only offering Alonso a 1-year extension, and when you're in the early stages of your career like Alonso is, a multi-year contract, meaning you get to stick around in the sport for several years to come, is always promising. And also I guess the Stroll cash helps too. So Alonso is out. Alpine had then already achieved Alpine things with Piastri, so he's out, so therefore Alpine had to look outside of their own roster to fill this seat. They were never going to take Jack Doohan. It wasn't going to happen, not this year, I'm sorry. I didn't see the Gasly move coming, but it does make a lot of sense. I even made a whole video about possible futures for Pierre Gasly, where I said that Alpine is not very likely, but then again, that was before, you know. And so now that we know that, this move looks pretty good, consistently fighting for points, at the very least the chance to prove that you are the best driver from your own country, and maybe, just maybe, potentially fighting to get on the podium or even for some wins. Very Alpine dependent though. I like this move for Gasly. Regardless of where Alpine is and how good their car is next year, you can't drive for Alpha Tauri forever. It's not a good look. I like this. Ocon, Gasly. What am I on so far? 8 out of 10? That's not bad. That's not bad for one of the silliest silly seasons that's happened in a while.
Alfa Romeo.
For Alfa Romeo, I put Bottas show. As much as it pains me as a Porsche fan, yeah, both solid, both met expectations. It makes sense. Happy for Alfa Sauber, good for them to have consistency and reliability, particularly as they transition into being just Sauber at the end of this season. I like this pairing, got it right, nice one.
Aston Martin.
Now, for Aston Martin, I put Stroll Porsche. I sadly correctly predicted the Vettel retirement. Clearly the man just has other things he wants to get done now, so fair play to him. Stroll is, well, furniture for this team at this point. Not particularly a controversial pick saying he was going to stay, but it was right, so there we go. And then Porsche, that one was kind of hopium. To be fair, he had just won 2 of the first 3 F2 feature races of that year, and had firmly asserted himself in his rising star status. Obviously, he didn't go on to win because Drugovich, I don't know, made a deal with the devil or something for race pace from that point onwards. But I would say Porsche very much still deserving of an F1 chance. Drugovich as well, but he's in Aston Martin now, so good for both of them. I would have liked to have seen it, but oh well. Instead, Aston have opted to go with an F1 champion who won his first title when Théo Pourchaire was 2 years old. Fernando Alonso. Replace a legend with a legend. It makes sense. The man is obviously invaluable in terms of development feedback, and also he has crazy pace. If Vettel can pull off some shock 6th place finishes, Alonso podium in green? This was always going to be a hard one to predict, to be honest. The Silverstone team has always been a little bit rogue. Not always in the best way.
Haas.
I predicted no change for Haas, but instead we have... Why? So, Magnussen had a solid return season and proved why he deserved to be given a multi-year deal when he came back. And then we have Mick. Oh, Mick. The season started pretty rocky. It then picked up for 2 promising races in the middle, and then the whole thing just kind of fizzled out towards the end. Schumacher was obviously kind of let down by Haas, sliding down the grid again in terms of development, but then again, he also didn't really do anything amazing. He's been solid, but very midfield, and clearly not what the team is looking for. That may not be the worst thing though, because I don't think Haas is necessarily looking for the best things. What is this? Explain yourselves. These two are known rivals. I can guarantee that these two are going to crash into each other at least once next season. There's going to be some big drama. Gunther Steiner's going to have to make loads of statements. Why would you do this to yourself? Why? I guarantee he was cheap, but like, come on. Maybe that's what they wanted. Maybe that's what they wanted all along. Maybe Gunther Steiner feeds on controversial energy, and he's been getting weak this season from just having, a normal year. Whatever the reasons, I don't agree with these picks, but this is what Haas has, so cool. 12 out of 16 so far, and I don't think it's about to get any better. For me. I mean, the grid is good, but for me, for my prediction, you'll see.
Alpha Tauri.
I predicted a Gasly Albon lineup for AT in 2023, and it turns out both were wrong. Firstly, Tsunoda, solid season, absolutely deserves to stick around. Shame that Alpha Tauri has sort of slipped back this year, and we didn't really get to see how he's developed from the driver he was last year. Maybe they'll pick it up again next year. Probably not. Then Gasly, we've talked about him. I made a whole video about him. He's gone. Get him out of here. Nice. Thirdly, I predicted Albon. Actually, I think sticking around at Williams may be a better deal for Albon, considering there's not actually much separating these two teams in terms of performance anymore. I would say it's probably good to break away from the Red Bull camp in Formula 1 and start to find your own family, particularly because Red Bull has already fired you once. And Albon has done exactly that. He had the Red Bull on the top of his helmet this year, but I'm pretty sure he's now like broken all ties. That's gone. He is Alex Albon, independent Williams man extraordinaire. Let's see how that goes. I can see Albon having a career similar to someone like Perez, probably a decent number of years in not very good machinery, but being a solid runner, always holding onto a seat from pure performance, and then maybe in a few years' time, he might get an opportunity at a top team to go and win some races, do some good stuff. Hopefully, maybe he'll get one sooner. I'm talking a lot. This is good for Albon. I like it. So instead of Albon, we have De Vries, a move which a year ago would have sounded absolutely mental because Red Bull have an enormous driver program. Lawson, sorry mate, but I've heard Japan's lovely, and I'm sure there's loads of people who've moved from Super Formula to Formula 1, I think. Let me just check. Let me check who else is in this club. Gasly? Really? Gasly? What are you doing in here? So again, I would say my predictions at the start of the season made a lot of sense, particularly when, on paper, there wasn't really anywhere for Gasly to go. And then, Alex Albon had, as expected, a solid season. I thought Red Bull might want to reel him back in, particularly if Tsunoda had another unimpressive season like he did in 2021. But this lineup is also solid for Alpha Tauri, a 2-year Formula 1 veteran and a Formula 2 and E champion who scored points in his F1 debut in a Williams. Not bad. And speaking of Williams. Okay, I will admit my Williams predictions did seem like curveballs at the time, but it did transpire that Alpine were trying to stick Piastri into the Williams for 2023, as I predicted, until of course, Alpine things. This would have been a pretty solid learning drive for Piastri if he didn't have any better options, which he obviously did. And then as we didn't get the Albon-Tsunoda swapperoo, the inevitable retirement of Nicholas Latifi had to be filled by someone. At the time of making my predictions, I won't lie, I didn't even consider Sargent as an option. Remember, at that point, the man had raced in 4 F2 weekends, don't forget the Saudi Arabia 2021 weekend, and his best feature race finish had been 7th. I thought he was going to finish the season 10th in the standings, or something like that, and not even be eligible. The guy didn't actually start drinking the Go Faster juice until about Silverstone, 2 months after my video, but I'm very happy that he did. I like seeing new rookies come into Formula 1, and as we didn't get my first choice, I'm glad we got at least one. Sargent has looked promising, particularly through the second half of this F2 season, and so I hope we get some flashes of speed in 2023. He's up against Albon, obviously, next year, which doesn't sound easy, but obviously Williams like him. If they didn't, then they would have just taken Schumacher or someone after Abu Dhabi for, dirt cheap. As he seems to have Jos Capito's favour, hopefully that means there won't be too much pressure on him to immediately be at Alex Albon's level, and that should give him time within the team to learn Formula 1, learn how the cars handle, learn the politics, learn all these things, and hopefully become a solid addition to the grid. Fingers crossed. And so, after all the seats were announced, I sit at 12. out of 20. Not great, honestly, but I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's called silly season for a reason. No one saw the Alonso move coming, including Otmar Zafnauer. Alpine things. And that really set off the whole avalanche of nonsense that you would have needed a crystal ball in order to predict correctly. So I'm happy with the score. I'll take it. Even if I got every single one wrong. I like these predictions videos because it forces us to really think about the drivers, evaluate them, and also to evaluate the teams and what the different teams need, which all in turn helps us to understand the sport better. And also a bit of speculation is always fun. And also it gives me an opportunity to take the piss out of Alpine, which I will do at any opportunity. Thank you very much. I hope you guys enjoyed these videos too. The view count on the last one suggested that you might have. I will be making my predictions for next silly season in the new year. Probably right after testing, I would say. So it gives us a chance to see which teams are moving up, which teams are moving down, and also there's always some random drama over winter. And so it would be silly to try and predict anything now. Stick around for that, but don't worry, there will be plenty of F1 garbage coming out on this channel between now and then. Like this video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And until then, I've been Mr. V, and I'll see you guys later.